hope I'm not the only one who goes through phases where I absolutely suck at like hitting goals and being consistent, essentially. I realized that competing in the Olympia and being a bodybuilder, I was going through so many phases where I would get super ramped up in prep, be super consistent on a tight schedule, a tight routine, everything at the same time every day, doing everything I needed. And then I would kind of dip down right after the Olympia. I would kind of fall off. I'd go to the gym when I could find the time, but I didn't really have a routine, so I would often skip days, not feel great, and I was giving myself a break. And when I did that, a lot of other things in my life were kind of falling off. And then it would slowly ramp up in my off season, you know, travel and business and work is kind of crazy, and then it would get super dialed in and locked in again for prep. And I was just realizing that I was going through these phases, and I was so efficient in prep and then very inefficient other times of the year. So I wanted to take some of the habits and the mindsets and the things that I applied throughout prep that made me efficient and learn how to apply them to like my day-to-day life forever, consistently. So I kind of dove in for the last week or so, just like reflecting and writing down some things that I did. And my goal is to apply them to my life going forward forever and hopefully help you guys too. So I'm not going to get into too deeply because I'll be sitting here for an hour and I wrote a fucking lot of shit, but I'm going to just tell you guys something to put down and maybe it'll help you. First thing is a clear goal. Obviously, at the Olympia, you know, there's nothing more clear than a fucking goal. October 14th, 2024, competing at the Olympia in Las Vegas. Like, that's the goal. I got to win the Olympia. But this thing that's always stuck with me, super cheesy, and I'm not going to get into deep because my mom was the one who taught it to me, and you can find it online, but it's called SMART goals. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relatable, and time-based. So specific, you need a very specific goal, not just like, I want to be strong. It's like, how strong do you want to be? At what date do you want to be strong? What lifts? Do you want to be explosive strong? Do you want to be like power lifter strong? What are your specific goals? Measurable, obviously be able to measure it. Attainable, has to be possible. Relatable, has to be authentic to yourself, something you care about. Time-based, there has to be a time base on it. Like I said, I'm not going to get deep into that because you guys can Google that yourself. But the big thing that I wanted to touch on here that I realized I applied into becoming Mr. Olympia and I think really helped me drive my success in my life was, instead of having a goal, necessarily like a thing that would end and then like the Olympia would fall off afterwards, it was more of an identity, a sense of self that I was trying to build and become someone who could complete X. So the way I kind of worded it, and I had written this down in one of the monologues I did before a prep series without even realizing that was the way I think, is instead of I want to win the Olympia, it's the goals you could write out to be more efficient would be, I want to be someone who X. So I want to be someone who trains consistently every single day, hits sets till failure, never skips a meal, never cheats on his diet, gets his sleep and recovery that he needs. All these different things like that. And I thought that was so important. And a huge thing for me within that was it wasn't just the actions and the physical things you did, but your mentality, the way you think, the way you treat people, and all these things. Because you might think of the identity of the champion as someone who is a little bit, you know, edges on the side of arrogant, super cocky, confident, and that's what winners do, because a lot of people we see in the media are like that. But that wasn't relatable or authentic to me. So the self I wanted to portray before I was the champion was the humble, respectful champion who treated everybody the same, whether it was a former Mr. Olympia backstage, a stage marshal, a security guard, whoever it might be. The champion I wanted to be was someone who embodied that respect, because I knew people would be looking up to me when I became this champion, not only for what I did, but who I was. And I wanted to be someone that my mom and their moms would be proud of if that's how they were acting. So the next thing I kind of dove into here was you have an identity and then creating a list of things and defining very specifically what those people do. And this comes back to that goal is I want to be someone who X. So I want to be someone who, you know, what does Mr. Olympia do? And you write that list down and, you know, you treat people with respect. You're humble. You go to the gym every single day, whether it's to train or to do active recovery, to stretch, to hit abs, to hit your accessory body parts. You know, you never cheat on your diet. And doing these things as much as possible, the more you define these habits and you live these habits, you will naturally become the success that you want to achieve. So instead of chasing after that goal, you become the identity and the person that will naturally attract that goal. And I think the biggest thing that people always come to me and ask me when I'm doing like meet and greets and they ask me, it's always like, how do I start? What do I do? How do I start? I have all these things, X, Y, and Z, and you can watch a million YouTube videos, read a million books, and sometimes you get like overwhelmed by the amount of steps that are out there. And I mean, nothing matters unless you actually do it. So taking action is the most important and hardest part. You know, I've always had this mindset that you are not what you think. You're not who you think you are. You just simply are what you repeatedly do. So you can think positive things. You can think, this is huge in relationships. You know, like I could tell my wife, I think you're beautiful. I think I love you. I just don't say it. Well, she's not going to know and feel it unless I show her with my actions. And it's the same in anything in life. So taking action is the most crucial point of everything. And I think what people fuck up is they get overwhelmed with too many steps and things to do. So this is going to be the most basic tip, but the most important one, if you take anything away from this, build an identity and start fucking small to build momentum. Those three things are everything when you break that down. So, for example, when I used to be in college, I used to drink 3 times a week, get like blackout drunk, go out with my friends, and I loved it. You know, I loved the social life. I was in college hanging out with people. It was the only time in my life I had to be able to live like that, and I was aware of that. So I didn't want to sacrifice that. So I did that for a period of time, but then I wanted to take bodybuilding more seriously. I was on the edge of going pro, and I knew I had a lot of potential in me, but I knew my lifestyle was holding me back. But I also wasn't ready to sacrifice my social life yet. So instead of just telling myself, all right, I'm going to stop drinking, stop going out, go to bed at 9 p.m., wake up at 6 a.m., do my cardio, never miss a meal, do all these things, I was like, I'm eating pretty good, still cheating a lot because I like going out with my friends, and I love going out at night, but I'm going to stop drinking. So I still stayed out until 2 a.m. every night, but I made one small change, and that was to stop drinking. And just that alone, waking up not hungover and not wanting to eat bacon and fucking God knows what else for breakfast because you're hungover and tired and lazy, having a bad workout, horrible recovery from the alcohol screwing up your system, I was able to make a decent amount of progress from that alone. And the momentum I built from that one small change encouraged me to want to make more changes. And eventually, I stopped going out completely, started to go to bed early. I started to clean up my diet, and I started to make all these little changes that eventually, that literal year was the year that I turned pro, won 2 pro shows, and made it to the Olympia, just from making these subtle changes. And it was huge. And the one change I made this cascade effect into everything in my life. And I think starting small, in order to build momentum, and being conscious that you are starting small intentionally to build momentum is huge. So the goal when you're starting something, especially if you're fresh, the goal is to be consistent, not perfect. So create an identity, define what that person does, start small, and make your goal to pick something that you can be consistent with rather than perfect. I don't need you to achieve the whole list. Pick one, start with that, and with that momentum, start another one, and another one, and another one. And after a while, once you're embodying these habits, these actions, and these behaviors, without even thinking of your goal anymore, you're going to achieve your goal, as long as you're doing this like well thought out. And the idea with momentum is, I mean, as anything, if you're driving a car and you take your foot off the brake and you roll into a wall, you're going to just fucking tap into the wall, fuck up your car a little bit. If you're driving 150 miles per hour at a brick wall and just fucking fly right through that thing, you probably keep going there through at the other side. You might, get a little scratches on your car, but you're still moving. It doesn't stop you because you have so much momentum. And that's the same thing with this. After making those small changes when I was young and building these habits over time, I didn't even feel like it was like I was dieting. I didn't feel like I was eating healthy. I didn't feel like I was training hard. It was just life. It was who I was, and it was what I did. So when something came in the way, whether I was in prep and it was my lat tear, my hamstring tear, 2018 when I was in the hospital, last year I had a minor hamstring tear I didn't even really talk about. It became this thing where it didn't even have a chance to hold me back because I had so much momentum, I had such an identity attached to the behaviors that I did, that when something came in to stop me, I just kept rolling forward through it after. So a lat tear would be something that would hold me back for a little bit, and I'd be immediately back on my shit, moving forward, getting better and better. And I can't stress that enough, that momentum is like the secret to get through stuff, because when things are so habitual that you don't have to think about them, that when chaos hits in your life, whether it be personal, stressful, mental, emotional, physical, your habits you don't have to think about. They take less energy. So you just keep moving forward, you keep getting better, and it's fucking everything. All right, so the next little tip amongst all these are kind of the actionable steps. But the other thing that I realized I did without knowing it is self-talk and like personal accountability. I tie these in together because how you talk to yourself sometimes how you hold yourself accountable. But personal accountability means you're responsible for your own life, which means you are in power. You have the power to control and change your life. So personal accountability equals power. Power is the ability to do whatever the fuck you want in your life. So no one else wants you to fucking hit your goals like you do. No one cares what you do beyond yourself. So make sure you're holding yourself accountable. You're not waiting for someone else to encourage you. You're waiting for someone else to go to the gym, do this or that. You really have to hold yourself accountable. Within the self-talk piece, a little thing that this is how I label it now, but I wasn't intentionally doing it in purpose in the time. But I was always talk to myself in my head like I was a mentor talking to my apprentice. There's always like your thoughts in your mind, and then there's the thinker of the thoughts. There's two kind of, when you're talking to yourself in your head, there's someone talking, and then there's someone paying attention. So there's kind of two like dualistic identities inside your brain at any given time. And I viewed it as like a mentor who was the retired 6-time Mr. Olympia talking to the amateur, the apprentice who wanted to become that and was embodying that and working towards that. So when I would talk to myself like, come on, champ, come on, you want to be Mr. Olympia? Like, let's get after it. It was like my future Mr. Olympia self talking to myself. And when I would be on a treadmill, I'd be supposed to do 30 minutes, 25 minutes goes by. I'm like ADD, bored, tired, want to go eat breakfast, deep in prep, whatever. And I'd get off and talk to myself like, come on, champ. Like, is that what Mr. Olympia does? Is Mr. Olympia have to get off 5 minutes before his cardio's done? I'd be like, fuck. And I would drag myself back on, finish my cardio, and actually do it right. Same thing with, a set. If I'm aiming for 10, I get 8, and I just put the weights down, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you could have gotten 10. Maybe I take 5 minutes, do another set that I'm not even supposed to do to hit that 10, just to hold myself accountable. Or I get right back on and do 2 more, 3 more reps, just to make sure I'm hitting that 10 that I was supposed to. But holding yourself accountable and having the proper self-talk is important. And I don't think this comes from shame. I don't think shaming yourself, calling yourself a piece of shit, like you fat fuck, get after it, all these things, I don't personally believe that works at all. I think if you call yourself a fat fuck and you begin to identify as a fat fuck, you will continue to act like a fat fuck. So not to use fat shaming as an example at all, but that's a huge one that people do. They eat bad. Fuck, I'm so fat. Well, I'm so fat, I'm going to keep eating bad. Like, no, don't shame yourself. Positive reinforcement. Talk to yourself from like a one-up position in a positive form. Hold yourself accountable to be better, not to shame yourself for being worse. I think that's absolutely huge. Positivity is fucking massive, and I think so many people think driving forward from shame works because it does for a period of time. But if you're trying to be a 6-time Mr. Olympia or do something consistently, I truly believe that everything I just listed of building identity, habits, the self-accountability, the positive self-talk, those are the only ways to properly sustain things. Obviously within that, the goal of everything I'm talking about, I'm trying to focus more on like mental things and the mental side of things. And even in the behaviors, something I didn't mention. If I was like, Mr. Olympia is someone who always has their head on right. What does someone who has their head on right do? They self-reflect, they journal, they go to therapy, they talk about their emotions and their feelings, they let things out, they don't hold it all in. And these were all part of the identity that I began to build to create a mindset that could do anything rather than just trying to accomplish one thing. And I think that was the most important thing that I kind of naturally built over time, and I didn't even realize what I was doing. I was just, again, starting small and building habits, creating identity around something I wanted to be, knowing I wanted to be Mr. Olympia and embodying that. Next thing I knew, I was fucking looking back, retiring, and I'd done it 6 times, and I was like, wow, like, you did it. And it was pretty cool. So, there's a lot of these things that I'm going to try to apply to absolutely everything in my life, such as, being a good father, defining what that means to me, being someone who, is present when his kids are around, is emotionally there for his daughter, is, drives them to their games, leaves work early because priority is family. These little things that are important to me, something that I want to define so I know who I want to be and I'm aware of it, and then I can actually act and live it out. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But essentially, clear outcome, clear goal, Google Smart Goals. I don't need to do that. Consistent identity. Define what that identity is. Start small, build momentum, and just fucking create an identity. Be someone who X, and define that very specifically. Not, I want to be jacked. I want to be someone who, and what are the attributes that you would view as someone who is jacked? I use that as an example, obviously, because it's easy for me to use. Self-talk, being positive, personal accountability, it all comes down to yourself. I don't need to repeat myself. It is what it is. But yeah, this is something that I've been personally reflecting on, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. I think, there's a lot of lessons that I learned that I didn't even understand I was learning. And, there's 2 times to learn from something. It's from the experience and then from reflecting on the experience. And I think from reflecting on the experience is when you truly are able to learn and make changes to your life going forward. because the greatest achievement of accomplishing your goals isn't the goal, it's who you become in accomplishing those goals. So I want to do my best to be able to share a lot of the things I did, hopefully help you guys move forward. And as I'm doing my self-reflection on the experience I just lived, I'm going to try and kind of share these little tidbits, if you will, with you guys. So sorry for the rant. Hope that made sense. I literally have like 5 bullet points on my phone that I'm going off from a 10-minute video, however long I'm talking. So hopefully it made sense. But appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching.